Happy Stoney Sunday! This is episode 223, and it's going to be a funky episode. I'm going to be on a panel inside the Citrus building at the High Times SoCal Cannabis Cup, and I figured this panel's question and answer. I'm wearing a Stoney Sunday shirt. It's Sunday. Let's make this the Stoney Sunday 223. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll have the info about my co-host down below.
Okay, everybody, I woke everybody up there. This is our Cannabis and Creativity Workshop, or seminar, and it's going to be led by a long-time activist, one of the most famous activists, cannabis activists in the Bay Area, Debby Goldsberry, right here. She's an amazing woman who's done more for cannabis movement than any other woman, I think, in California. She's going to be leading the seminar because, as we all know, cannabis generates creativity. Artists, it doesn't mean that all your art will be great, but it certainly makes us feel like we are artists, and it really does enhance our creativity. So that's what this seminar is about. It'll be a lot of fun. So everybody is here for Debby Goldsberry.
Thank you, Malcolm, and thanks for having us all here. Thank you, panelists, for being esteemed panelists. Well, we're here to talk about cannabis for creativity. Of course, High Times is so creative. We thought of this High Times Cannabis Cup. It must have been stoned when we thought of that. For me, well, I myself am not too artistic, but I consider myself creative because using cannabis, I've been able to envision political campaigns, activism campaigns, flyers, been able to create training programs for dispensary staffs, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, I should say, by way of introduction, my name is Debby. I'm the ambassador at Magnolia Wellness Center of Oakland, California. We're a medical cannabis dispensary up there. I'm also on the board of directors of Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform because we're going to legalize cannabis in 2016. Of course, with your help, I've got the flyers. We need you all to get involved. And I'm working on a conference in San Francisco next weekend called the International Cannabis Business Conference, because what really matters to me is all of our success in the future of the cannabis industry. Because I think we need to make sure that we have enough business sense to know how to compete against these bazillionaires that are coming out of the woodwork and coming into the cannabis industry. So our focus on the ICBC is making sure that we, the cannabis entrepreneurs, the founders of this movement, the people who've been feeding their families on cannabis for years and years, have a leg up. And on the flip side, we have to make sure that the new entrepreneurs understand that this is a movement, that we're a community, that we're creative. This is not a suit and tie industry, and we'll make sure that it's not. But you know what, we have to educate people about things like social responsibility, about advocacy, about how to do that work, about how your business succeeds if you do that work. So we're doing the ICBC next week in San Francisco, so hopefully you guys can check out some of the work. But today, what I wanted to get together about is to talk about that thing about cannabis that makes us also interesting. I mean, here we are gathered together. It's 20,000, 28,000 of the most creative people around the Southern California area, people who have been, you know, like me, who flew down here from Oakland because I want to be Facebook, so we'll look forward to that. Coral Reaper in the middle there. Coral is a vlogger. You've probably seen her stuff. She's very creative. She has inspired a lot of people to get involved in the cannabis industry, to realize the potential, to open our minds and have some fun with the industry, and very happy to have Coral here. And at the end, we have, thank you. At the end, Amber Center, who is a graphic designer, worked for a lot of big companies, Nike, etc. And now she's putting her mind to her own brand, the Cannasaur. So Amber is using cannabis to help inspire her work, and I really look forward to hearing what everyone has to say. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the panelists, and let's just go down the road. So Mark, do you want to take more time to introduce yourself and then say a few words about how cannabis, what can you say about this?
Hello. I guess what I was thinking about, like cannabis and creativity, I started thinking about like how your imagination works. And a neuroscientist would say imagination is like a muscle. Like the more you use it, the sharper it is and the better it is for problem solving. So all your erotic daydreams are actually quite useful for keeping your imagination strong and flexible. So when you have to solve a problem or something, you can think outside the box, which I think a lot of us do here. And so I was thinking that when you smoke cannabis, and for me particularly if I smoke a sativa, it really lights up my imagination a lot. I may look like I'm walking through the park or sitting on the couch, but my brain is actually quite active. And so just as a way of thinking about cannabis use as basically like a boot camp for your imagination, I think is a good way to start.
I love the idea of cannabis as a boot camp for your imagination. I think that's fantastic. My name is Paul. I'm a YouTuber and blogger. I have a fairly creative job by description. I'm creating content constantly on different networks. The content is always different based on that network. I have to interact with the audience and see what they're happy with. But I don't always consider myself an artistic or creative person. And cannabis has really helped me lessen my own perfectionism, and I'm kind of realizing the project is finished and I can be happy with it. And I can walk away and move on to the next project rather than just focus and pick at something and really not let the creative juices flow, because I'm so analytical in that way. So it's really added a lot to my life, and it's added a lot to my career. And I've really noticed that in the cannabis community, there are so many different types of creative people. I've met clothing makers, jewelry makers, painters, metal workers, glass melters. I've met so many different people that make a living expressing themselves in a creative way. And I don't know another industry that really fosters that type of ingenuity and enthusiasm for not only the plant itself, but building an entire life and career creating around it. It's incredible. So I'm happy to be here and share whatever I can.
I'm going to say something before Alec, because I don't understand the science because I'm not an artist and I'm not a scientist, but I know this. This is what I understand about this cannabis and creativity thing. When you smoke cannabis, it interrupts your normal thought processes. And when your normal thought processes are interrupted, it's actually good for creativity. And what happens is when you smoke cannabis and all that happens, you start to put ideas together in a different way than you normally put ideas together. And you start to see associations between things that you normally wouldn't have associated. And it's this actual function, the disruption in your normal thought process, and the way that your brain pieces that back together, that is just one of the ways that cannabis encourages creativity. And to me, that's so fascinating. The idea that my thoughts open up, and they stay open, and I can see, feel, and understand things differently. And I've absolutely felt that in my life, and it's a huge benefit for cannabis. But Alec is a scientist, and so he's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much, Debby. I love to do that. My name is Alec Dixon. I'm not actually a scientist myself. I work at a partner, co-founder of SC Laboratories. We work with a lot of chemists, microbiologists, blood insurance testing, testing for terpenes and active milligram content, CBD, THC flowers. But I do frequently put on a lot of educational seminars around the state of California, educating patients and bartenders and even sometimes medical professionals on how cannabis interacts with the endocannabinoid system, which is our body's natural system that promotes kind of everything from mood to energy, hunger, pain, tolerance. But anyway, interestingly, cannabis has enormous amounts of beneficial, creative, kind of inducing properties. Two of them that I can speak on scientifically, which are pretty interesting. I'd like to kind of just mark out real quick. Basically, THC, which is an indica sativa light. THC is a partial CB1 receptor agonist, so it binds to CB1 receptor, which is primarily located throughout your central nervous system, your brain, certain other organs. And when THC binds to CB1, that's why you feel psychoactive effects. Well, so when THC binds to this receptor, also along interacting with different systems in our body, basically THC binding CB1 in the central nervous system then creates basically an inhibition of GABA. So GABA production in the body is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and so when THC binds to this receptor, to the CB1 receptor, GABA becomes inhibited, allowing for dopamine to release. And dopamine has a direct link to creativity as well, as found in Parkinson's patients. Parkinson's patients undergoing dopamine therapy, somewhat of an unexpected side effect of dopamine therapy in Parkinson's patients was enhanced creativity. So drew this link to kind of dopamine and creativity. So although THC is working on this endocannabinoid system, it's also having interaction with the creative dopamine neurotransmitter released in the body. And then secondarily, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep it not complex, but also cannabis, whenever THC binds to CB1, also enables more production of BDNF in our brain, and BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and neurotropins are what basically allow and create allow for the survival and expanded growth of neurons in the brain. So THC binds to CB1 in our central nervous system. It allows for more production of BDNF, which allows for less deteriorating neurons and more expanded neural connections, which kind of speaks to what Debby was talking about. And we've all seen it, how it affects us individually. I've had multiple very specific epiphanies in my life, and moments of clarity, with working with this plant medicine. I'm very grateful for that, but yeah, it's a little too sensitive to science part.
Hey, my name is Amber Center. I'm the owner of Canasur Provisions. It's an edibles company based in the Bay Area. I'm also a graphic designer and marketer. I help a lot of different cannabis-based businesses with their creative direction, and also with their marketing efforts and marketing campaigns and things like that. So I started out as a math and science major. I was a physics major when I was in college, and I started smoking weed when I was 18 when I was in college. And it's kind of funny, I refer to that period of time as when I became self-aware. Because right after I started smoking pot, I decided to change my way, my whole career, and not be a physics major anymore, but more into art. design, I actually wanted to decide that I wanted to have my own design agency and freelance. So, you know, I have to come up with a lot of different ideas constantly to help all these different businesses kind of set themselves apart from the rest. I work a lot with different head shops. I work with some other edibles companies, and I have my own edible company. I work with other edibles companies to help them with their marketing efforts. I've helped Debby on a couple of different projects. So, you know, people ask me all the time, how do you come up with so many different ideas? And how are they always so fresh? And how are you so passionate about it? And really, you know, when I get stuck on something, sometimes I can be stuck for days. If I just really sit down and spark the joint, call up a friend who may do the same thing. I mean, even if you get off on a tangent, talking in a conversation, it still ends up somehow circling back and really all making sense and just clicking every time. I mean, I've been doing this since 1999. It's been a really long time, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different things, but cannabis always really helps. You know, it makes you question things, it makes you see things from different avenues and different perceptions, and it's really just, it's awesome. You know? I laugh at all the people that kind of told me that I was making a mistake and getting into cannabis and smoking more weed and not going this plant and science route. But I'm so happy, you know, I'm so happy now. And what I really do makes a difference, you know, I mean, it makes a difference for everyone, you know. So, yeah, you know, I really feel like cannabis has been really instrumental in helping inspire my creativity, not just mine, my clients and everything. You know, I need smoke weed. They make such awesome stuff. So, thanks.
Well, I think I'm funny. But one thing I've learned from studying cannabis science is that one thing that it does is it operates in your mind to help you not take things so seriously. The endocannabinoid system in your body is responsible for your stress control mechanism in your brain. And if you don't have the natural endocannabinoids, if they're not working right in your body, you absolutely need to augment with cannabis or you just stress out. And that's why when you're stressed out or, you know, really having a hard time, that's why turning to cannabis is actually productive because it helps you sort your thoughts out. I don't know if it makes you funnier. Anyway. Okay, some questions for the panelists. I'd like to just go down the road because tell us a little bit about your work. Mark, tell us about the book. Coral, tell us about the website. You know, tell us about the lab. Tell us about any project you want to handle and many projects. I've got 3 or 4 questions for you guys. Maybe we can just sit through some questions. So, Mark.
Traditionally I write novels, I've written 5 novels, but I wrote a book called Heart of Dankness, Underground Botanists, Outlaw Farmers, and the Race for the Cannabis Cup, where I interviewed people like Debby and other noted authorities around the world. And I also wrote a novel called Wait, which is kind of a fictionalized version of a DNA story, which I didn't realize at the time that I wrote it. And my next book that's coming out in June is called Naked at Lunch, Reluctant Nudist Adventures in the Clothing Ocean World, where I basically went around the world and saw what nudists were doing and took a cruise with 2,000 nudists on a boat, things like that. So my work is either divided between like sort of sitting at home in my sweatpants writing a novel or traveling around talking to interesting people. And most writers will say that they use a lot of caffeine, which is true, but in the afternoons, in can't drink any more coffee, you need something else. And I found that a nice sativa is a good way to focus for a couple extra hours. That's my big tip for writers.
Yeah, good sativa can definitely extend the productivity a little bit longer. For my work, I started off just posting, I think like most of us do on Facebook and Twitter and different social networks that I was on. And I noticed that when I would post about cannabis, a lot of misinformation would get left on the comments below. People would think, like, how can you smoke and go to work, or how can you smoke and get anything done? And it was so surprising, because growing up in California, we're pretty cool with cannabis. We know the medicinal value, we know some people use it on the weekends. Like, there's a lot of different ways cannabis is in people's lives. So once I started exposing cannabis to the internet more and more in my own little network, I was shocked at how many people were still afraid of cannabis, and they were still hesitant to even try it once, because they are on the straight and narrow, and they do have a career they love, or a school that they really are happy to go to, and they're not going to risk a scholarship, they're not going to risk anything at that point. But cannabis is something that can help them in whatever position they're at. And I found that the more I was talking about it online, the more people were relaxing around it, wanting to try it for the first time themselves. So like you said, with a lot of my work, I'm at home in sweatpants too, just taking on the computer. And then the other aspect is traveling to fun places and meeting people that have seen the blog, and I get to hear from them how cannabis has helped their lives. And the biggest thing that I hear back is the pressure that comes off when you come out to your family that you like cannabis, or that you use cannabis medicinally. And that weight off your shoulders uses up, I think, so much mental space to create so many good things in your life. So once you've taken that weight off your shoulders, once you've told your family cannabis is something you use, either something you're going to work for, and it's an industry you're interested in, or it's something that you use every day in your life, I think without that weighing you down and stressing you and constantly worrying and hiding, we're going to see a whole new bunch of creative people in this industry. Legalization is changing things, and the way the brain works when you're with cannabis and on cannabis, and cannabis is in your system, it changes what you can create. And I think the more that we have legalization, the more we're going to keep blowing away at what people are making. So I'm going to keep chugging along. I just do internet posts, different posts every day talking about pot and what it's like to be a cannabis user or patient in different areas. And one of my favorite things to do is smoke like the locals smoke, wherever I go, and try to smoke how everyone does there with their friends. And then LA and SoCal is a good way to be, because it's a really nice place. I'm happy.
Cool. SC Laboratories. I also, I'm on the board of directors of an organization in Santa Cruz called WAM, the Women's Alliance for Medical Marijuana. It was one of the foundation reasons why Proposition 215 came about, in 1996, kind of worked by Dollar Crow and Crowley in conjunction with people like Dennis Perron, really sparked a legal revolution, and it's incredible because cannabis undoubtedly has this effect on consciousness and expanding consciousness and just starting to open up your mind and drawing connections. It almost has these certain entheogenic properties to it, kind of like psychedelics do. And with the work that's been done over the past few decades to kind of push forward prohibition, and with the way that all these incredible and passionate cannabis users are so deeply kind of spreading this awareness and message, it's kind of interesting. It's almost like cannabis possesses us, and kind of we become a messenger for its plant medicine teaching spirit. And it's really exciting because you see, just over the last few decades, if you can just imagine how many individual grams of herb were grown in Northern California alone, and then how every one of those nugs of the tonnage, the hundreds of tonnage, how over 30, 40 years, all these nugs slowly circulating across the United States and elsewhere. And then you see kind of 30 years later how society is starting to catch up, and our policy, law, and then society's the overall discourse, cultural discourse of the way we view cannabis. And so it's all changing so rapidly now. And cannabis has really sparked kind of a huge global debate about what a drug is and what, it's like cannabis is drug is bad, but like Oxycontin and pharmaceuticals the way they're used. And then so it's kind of readjusting, I think, what we view as drugs and what a drug is, and how there's plants all over this earth that are intended for us to use that have these deep connections, right? There's no other plant in nature besides cannabis that has these plant-produced cannabinoids, and the only thing else in nature that fits into this system is cannabis, besides what we naturally produce. And so it's very purposeful, you know, and you know, another thing I'd like to kind of point on and end on is kind of on Michael Pollan's work. If anybody's heard of this gentleman, Michael Pollan, this amazing lawyer, not expert, stupid law student, and he wrote a book called Botany of Desire. Botany of Desire is amazing. It took 4 plants: cannabis, potatoes, tulips, and apples, and it shows how humans have used and adapted this plant over millennia to breed it for the specific purposes that we want out of it, which typically are intoxicating properties, you know, and it's kind of funny, but you know, we're looking for kind of an altered state as human beings to figure out the path. But in this book, Botany of Desire, one of the main theses was this whole kind of concept of co-evolution, and what's driving what is, you know, we're evolving the plant to fit our needs, but what effect is the plant having on us? You know, and so I think our work collectively is really pushing this whole revolution forward, and it's a revolution of consciousness, and it's, you know, it's I think you could consider cannabis maybe the gateway drug in this instance of how it's opening the door for the way society uses entheogens and other plants, you know, that are used and have been traditionally used for thousands of years, like ayahuasca, iboga, and psilocybin, and just all the work of science that's going to come as soon as the prohibition is lifted, and then the ability for the community to take an inquiry eye into these different plant medicines and their purpose and how that all fits into reality. But sorry for all the things.
Okay, so Debby asked what my biggest project I'm working on now is, and that would be my own project, which is within the Store Divisions, the edibles company. So I have an edibles company that I launched January 6th of this year. I'm in 4 dispensaries so far, and I've done all the branding, came up with the recipes, really everything, marketing, everything for my own brand. And you know, I've kind of come up with really creative ways to get the product out. So I've done a couple of samplings at the dispensaries. One of my products is a waffle, so I'll do like a live waffle demo where I'll actually come into the dispensary, make waffles, set the waffle bar. People can assemble their waffle and take it with them home, or eat it there at the dispensary, the dispensary allows on-site consumption. But yeah, so that's really my biggest project. Also working with a magazine right now, they're an online magazine, but I'm switching over to print, so I'm going to be helping them lay that out into a print format. But yeah, so that's what it is.
I've had the waffle on this delicious. It's so good. I need to have a question with you because it's
right when I got involved in this movement way back in the 80s, there was all this talk that there was no scientific studies about cannabis. You know, because Ronald Reagan had closed down all the studies. They weren't funding studies anymore. And all the studies that had happened before were pretty well buried, taken out of libraries, and they wanted to find them. But we came across a book called Correlates and Consequences of Cannabis Use. And in that book, it was this big, it was just abstract after abstract of studies that have been done about cannabis. It was a real gold mine when you hear there's no studies about cannabis and you get a book that abstracts about it. And as I was reading through all the studies, a common theme came across, and it was about creativity. That cannabis users self-report would often say something like, they're also anti-government. So for me, it was pretty easy to maybe get a little conspiratorial and think, yeah, of course the government doesn't want a substance getting out there that is making people creative and anti-government. That stuff's got to be squashed out. And I'm pretty sure that the desire in society to contain creativity is a bit of what this prohibition is about, and that's a darn shame. And it's kind of nice, and I was almost thinking today when I was coming in here, I was thinking, man, I almost liked it better when we were all outlaws, because we had to be really creative just to get through every day and not get arrested, you know, like ordering records, send over the records, you know, I don't know. I need 10 tapes or something, you know, you're just really trying to stay afloat of prohibition. So anyway, I think creativity is a very important part of cannabis. And I read that Michael Pollan book, that's a good book. And I like that thing that Terrence McKenna, do you guys remember him? He passed away a few years ago. Yeah, he had that thing about the mushrooms, that the mushrooms had a spirit, you know, a little man in the mushrooms. And that when you use the mushrooms, you got the essence of what was in the mushrooms that was being communicated to you in order to make a better society. And I believe cannabis communicates with us in the same way, that there's a message in the cannabis plants. And the message is about creativity, and about kindness, and about social responsibility, and about community, and about the importance of being together, and the importance of being yourselves. So I really enjoy cannabis. Let's get it out to as many people as possible, because if they try it, it's going to maybe change the way they think a little bit. So I don't want to keep the panel going too much longer. Thank you. But I want to send the microphone down maybe one last time, and maybe even one more. People aren't tired by then. Sick of us, and we know. I don't know. Oh, just let me say one thing. You guys remember when Jerry Brown last year, the governor, was saying we can't legalize cannabis because the workforce is going to get too dumb? What the heck is that about? That is absolutely ridiculous. And if we do our jobs right over the course of the next year, what's going to come out by the time we have to be battling for legalization is when we legalize cannabis, and we're going to have the most creative and dedicated workforce that America has seen. But we have to work to do it. We must do our work.
When he said that, I read it to my mom because I thought it was hilarious. And she's a non-smoker. She hasn't used cannabis in almost 30 years. And I read her that quote, and her first reaction was, does he think the workforce is sober right now? And we're doing okay. People are going to work. We're on our jobs. People are getting stuff done. So we are going to have legalization because we deserve it and we've earned it. And it's a necessary requirement for this plan to proceed. We need it, not because he's a, I don't know, that was ridiculous. That was so funny.
All right, one more question, and feel free, as you pass the microphone along, to do a final editorialization of your thoughts. I can always come back to you if you have more to say. I have a little note here. I'm taking notes. Well, here's a funny story about myself. But when I first started smoking marijuana, this is what I forget it. I was a teenager, but I remember how fun it was to turn on the TV to the Snow Channel and to watch the snow and to talk about what we can envision in the snow. It was almost like looking for, cloud people or something like that. Or it's a dolphin or something like that. But that's just one of the fun things about cannabis. It is downright silly and creative and interesting. Okay, the serious question is, for productivity and creativity, are there particular strains? You mentioned sativa. You got a certain sativa that you can recommend to people. Do you guys dab for creativity? Is there anything that doesn't work for creativity that you would recommend to get the juices going? That medicine is for sleeping. I don't know, which else could be creative. So there's the question.
Well, yes. I can recommend several strains that you might like to be creative. Well, for me, I always prefer the land-raised sativas or things like Memphis Haze. There's one I just had the other day called the Legendary Lemon, which is some sort of lemon skunk, lemon, super lemon haze combo that was actually but it's always like that, like Congolese Red, what is it, John, not Jack Ray, but John, he was the manager of the MC5, I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, there's a Congolese Red strain, but for me it's the stuff that, it's not so much about getting stoned, which is nice if you want to relax and get body high and just chill out, have sex or something, but for being creative, I need that sort of uplift and the clarity that we get with a really solid, pure sativa. So that would be my choice for a creative party.
I agree with the sativa, and I'm one of those people that prefers dabs when I have a project to focus on. I find that if I'm grinding up the bud and rolling up a joint or popping a bowl, I get lost in the plant. I'll end up just smelling all the terpenes and hanging out with it, kind of smoking a little slower, and I want to put that project off longer. But if I float at the dab, I use my nail, it's quick and it gets the cannabinoids flowing really nicely, and then I can get started and I feel efficient if I quick with what I'm doing. And I've been told, I don't know if you can verify this or not, but sativa's processed with a higher yield and more successfully out of concentrates. So it seems like they're more readily available, so it feels like we can do that.
Yeah, as far as if something tests really high, like a lot of sativas do, like towards high 20s, some like strains like Banana Fresh and Grill and certain of these really test in the early 30% range. But yeah, those strains like have an incredible yield efficiency whenever you turn them into an extract. So you can see a lot of those around the market. If something tests 12%, it's like a purple push. The yield on it is not going to be worth really making extracts, especially for using flowers. But as far as some strains and terpenes that are really beneficial to kind of promote spark creativity and stuff, can be like terpinolene. Terpinolene is the terpene that's common in like Jacaré, Trainwreck, like Sage, certain like smell lines. A lot of different land-based strains. Terpinolene is very high. Terpinolene, so the terpenes that are high that people associate the sativa effect with are limonene, which is the smell of lemon, citrus. That's in sour diesels and OGs, lemonades, stuff like that. And then a lot of sativas are high in limonene. And then also terpinolene, like I was saying, Jacaré, Trainwreck, Sage, and then also pinene, which is also a lot of land-based strains that smell pine. But yeah, those three terpenes, it's like you kind of get that smell, you can kind of follow strains that you can kind of pick out the nose and have those into that. And also, some terpene results. You can always choose strains together, or limonene dominant, terpinolene dominant, or pinene dominant. Those would be beneficial for enhanced creativity. Whereas, like, if you're going for kind of this stony kind of couch kind of sedative, that's more going to be terpenes like myrcene, which is like mango and hops, linalool, which is like lavender, and the ginger alcohol, like pepper and clove. It's a big offering designed like Girl Scout cookies. But I think to the point of like smoking or dabbing, and it's to each his own, and we all have like our endocannabinoid system primed to have a certain dose tolerance, and that whatever that is perfect for you, and if I think one of the worst ways that cannabis can be used with creativity is over-dabbing or over-smoking or overdosing accidentally or intentionally, because oftentimes it can create this weird, I've heard it best described as like a cannabis post-traumatic stress, and it's kind of where you extremely overstimulate the CD1 receptor with THC, and you kind of get this really negative kind of like rejecting physiological response in your body, almost anxiety. That's what puts people in the hospital, and it's what turns people off of cannabis. And so I think my big point I'm trying to make is, those that don't smoke cannabis are lacking on major creative engines that they can use as a tool along their path. And it all happens because they might have one time uneducatedly or accidentally taken too big of a dose happens is like if you overstimulate, you get this really bad effect, and then every time after that you smoke, it kind of brings back the same awful effect. And so you hear people say, oh, it's not for me. Usually you hear people say it's not for me because they either not tried it, and some have some type of like disposition against trying it, or they tried it and had a really negative response. And so when you get this really negative response, it happened to me. I was doing Navy when I got out of the Navy, and smoking bowl things. Didn't take too many hits, one more, but I take a big enough hit where I coughed, I really loud, I really deep, and I was really red eye, and down cough. But it was just smoking a bowl, and I got so awkwardly uncomfortably high that, I believe, eating lunch, and it was just this really negative experience. And every time I smoked for the first 20 times after that, it was this really related kind of thing. It's like, man, I remember, maybe it's not for me anymore. So I have a lot of empathy for people, and like family members. Like this cannabis is for everybody because we all have an endocannabinoid system, and for what it's worth, we're all deficient. And cannabinoids, from THCA, CBDA, like the different cannabinoids are believed one day to be like there'll be a dietary essential, just like omega acids, as far as preventing health and long anti-inflammatory life, and so if somebody has this negative response, this cannabis PTSD, like I did, it's really interesting, and I'll try to wrap up the point, but it's kind of on the whole creativity thing. You go through a lot of really deep kind of like self-questioning and doubting, like really negative, insecure, like crazy stuff, and whenever you get to that point with it, you almost have to like work through it, like a rite of passage to like come or overcome like a lot of your own fighting that you have not surrendering to this plant medicine in a good way. But just to give you a word of advice, if you know anybody like that in your life, it's for everybody, and you can actually reframe your endocannabinoid system, or to reframe your response to cannabis. Because when you create a negative response, you keep smoking and keep doing the same thing, and it's like you get the same result back. And so you create this neurofeedback like response to a relationship with cannabis where it's just like, oh, cannabis negative. And it's like whenever you just kind of create that neuroplastic network connection in your brain, you have to reprogram that by not doing the same thing as smoking THC, but if you use CBD, so you can use the CBD is really for anti-anxiety, it has a lot of anxiety type stuff that THC can sometimes turn people away from cannabis with. But you use CBD and then you microdose. Microdosing is so important. So like whenever somebody first starts using cannabis, or whenever somebody is going through like essentially repriming their system after having this negative response, you're microdosing your way up. If you want a dab, don't take a dab the first time, because you're probably never smoke cannabis now. But if you slowly microdosing your way to like your tolerance and your adequate feelings and to be right, and go on.
So I think I'm the odd man out here on the panel. Everyone's been talking about sativas for their creativity, but I actually prefer indicas. I can't handle any kind of alcohol. So I don't drink coffee, stay away from caffeine, I don't do any of those things. I have so many ideas coming out of my head, thoughts, not necessarily just ideas, but thoughts that I need to slow them down. So lots of times, if I do smoke a sativa with Debby, she brings over Jack there, makes me bug out. But the ideas are coming so fast, the thoughts are coming so fast, a lot of times they just get dismissed, or they just get lost. But when I'm smoking an indica, they come in a lot, not necessarily slower, but I have the patience to kind of think about them, and maybe explore them further versus just dismissing it. So indicas, just like it slows down my heart rate, but it slows down my thoughts to a point where I can really see and kind of really massage the idea and get into it versus just letting it fly on my head.
Let's hear it for the panelists. Very good. The only thing I want to say in conclusion, besides thank you, it's very nice, is we got to legalize cannabis in California, but we need to keep control of the message. We need to keep creating a socially responsible cannabis industry, a creative cannabis industry, a smart cannabis industry based on good business principles. So we have to learn all that stuff and promote that stuff. So I am working on the campaign to legalize it. I just want to let you guys know that. My next creative thing is a party. It's my motto. No more boring parties. So I don't know if you guys are into these thought parties sometimes, though. Let's get into it. Anyway, I'm having a party at my house, and I'll tell you why. Because I decided that I want my voice to be heard in the campaign to legalize marijuana. And the best way I can do that is get people together and raise money. So I have decided I'm throwing a party at my house. I'm going to raise $25,000 that day. It's my birthday. It's coming up March 15th. So I would encourage you all to get involved in the campaign, get active, figure out how to raise money, because it's going to cost about $10 million to legalize cannabis in California. And that's only if we don't have organized opposition. Because if we have to fight against cops or sheriffs or narcs or prison guards or whoever it is, we have to spend even more money. So I'm working on the campaign with the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform. Of course, I got some birthday party invites if you want to come. And I've got some stickers. These are only $1. Look how shiny. They're very creative and you can walk around with them. So I've got some info. We're all going to hang out for a minute. And I'd love to say hi to you guys in person. Thank you so much for coming to the event and also to our panel. It's very much appreciated. Give a big hand for everything that's happening. Thank you, everyone.
That's a little First Amendment problem there.
I yelled at them. I was 18 and I remember saying I'm 18 and you're in my apartment where I pay rent. I'm not doing anything wrong. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. They didn't find any pots.